I am the Watcher. I observe all that transpires across the multiverse. Today, I share a tale of two heroes who defied destiny itself. When Wade Wilson stole technology beyond comprehension, he created a paradox that would either save Tony Stark or unravel existence. This is their story, a question of whether some deaths are too important to prevent.
The TVA containment facility erupted in a cascade of temporal energy as Wade Wilson, better known as Deadpool, crashed through the quantum barrier like a wrecking ball made of bad decisions and chimichanga cravings. Sparks flew from damaged time flow regulators, while TVA agents scrambled for cover, their pruning sticks charging with that distinctive whine that meant someone was about to have a very bad day.
Sorry, not sorry.
A dying TVA agent reached out weakly from beneath fallen debris. Agent Paradox, one of the few operatives with clearance to Kang-level temporal technology. As his life ebbed away, Paradox's final act wasn't heroic resistance. It was spite. Pure, timeline-shattering spite.
You want to play with time, Variant? Then choke on it.
The device was smaller than a hockey puck, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and writhe when you weren't looking directly at them. The moment Wade's skin touched the device while holding the tempad, a quantum bonding occurred, the Kang tech fusing with his unique regenerative cells, creating something unprecedented. Before the remaining TVA forces could converge, Wade activated both devices simultaneously. The fusion created a temporal blind spot, making him invisible to TVA sensors for crucial minutes. Reality didn't just bend, it folded, twisted, and did that thing where you try to turn a fitted sheet inside out, but somehow end up trapped inside it yourself.
Maximum effort.
He vanished into the swirling vortex of possibility, leaving behind a crime scene that would baffle even the TVA's best analysts. The temporal wake of his departure sent ripples through the sacred timeline that would be felt across infinite realities. In his sanctum, Wong paused mid-spell, his eyes widening as he felt the fabric of reality shudder. Somewhere in the quantum realm, a Kang variant smiled, and in a timeline that should have been pruned, that should have never existed, Tony Stark was about to have the worst and last day of his second life. Liking this story so far? Well, it would mean a lot to our channel if you could hit that subscribe button and share with your marvelous friends. Okay, back to the story. Wade Wilson materialized in 2018, specifically May 3rd, 2018, 2 weeks after the snap that would define a generation of trauma and therapy sessions. But this wasn't quite the 2018 anyone remembered. The quantum signature was different, shifted just enough to create a branch that the TVA's algorithms hadn't detected yet. The Kang tech's blind spot, giving him a window of opportunity. The Merc stumbled onto the pristine lawn of the Avengers compound, taking a moment to appreciate the landscaping before focusing on his mission. His plan was simple in that way. Only Deadpool's plans could be simple. Find Tony Stark before his noble sacrifice in Endgame. Wade's meta-awareness meant he'd watched the MCU films in his Fox universe, studied them obsessively, memorized every detail about the heroes he'd never meet, until now. What Deadpool didn't realize was that the Kang tech, now bonded to his cellular structure, wasn't just a transportation device. It was a reality anchor, designed to create permanent branches that even the TVA couldn't prune. Every step he took, every word he spoke, was carving a new timeline into existence with the permanence of granite sculpture. Inside the compound, Tony Stark sat alone in his workshop, surrounded by holographic displays showing the energy signatures from Thanos' snap. The data was beautiful in its horror, a perfect mathematical expression of genocide. 6 days without sleep had taken their toll. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Peter Parker turning to dust in his arms. The workshop security system should have detected Deadpool's approach, should have raised 17 different alarms. But the Kang tech operated on frequencies that Stark's sensors couldn't even conceptualize. To them, Deadpool might as well have been a ghost story walking through walls.
Who the hell are you and how did you get past my security?
Name's Deadpool, and I got past your security using the power of narrative convenience and fourth wall manipulation. Also, this neat little doohickey that makes your tech look like a potato battery.
The device pulsed with an energy that made Tony's arc reactor flicker in response. His genius mind immediately began running calculations on the impossible energy signatures. A time traveler who knew about future events, carrying technology that shouldn't exist, claiming to want to prevent his death. When Deadpool activated a small hologram, showing Tony 5 years older, graying at the temples, standing next to a little girl with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin, something in Tony broke. Or perhaps something finally made sense.
Morgan H. Stark, your daughter, born in 2019, loves cheeseburgers just like her dad. I know this because where I'm from, we watched your story play out on screen. Every sacrifice, every loss, every triumph.
The impossible had become possible so many times in Tony's life. Why not once more? As he made the decision to believe, a quantum echo of the Kang device imprinted itself in Tony's subconscious, a failsafe that would activate at the moment of his intended death. The moment Tony Stark decided to believe Deadpool, the timeline shuddered. In the TVA's headquarters, alarms that hadn't sounded since the death of He Who Remains began wailing. Monitors displayed a branching point that glowed red, spreading like cracks in glass.
What in the name of all that's bureaucratic is happening?
Miss Minutes materialized on the main screen, her cheerful demeanor replaced with something approaching panic. They were dealing with a Class 10 temporal deviation, someone using Kang tech to create a branch they couldn't prune, a temporal tumor growing roots in multiple timelines simultaneously. The blind spot had worn off, but it was too late. The damage was done. Back in 2018, Wong materialized through a portal, his face grim with the weight of multiversal knowledge.
Stark, we have a problem. The entire multiverse is screaming because of what your new friend has done.
The mystical warnings were interrupted by orange light as a TVA time door materialized. Mobius stepped through with a squad of Minutemen, attempting to arrest Wade Wilson for crimes against the sacred timeline. They insisted Tony's death was a Nexus event that must be preserved for the greater good. The confrontation escalated. Tony's anger at learning his death was just another statistic. Wong's mystical energy crackling in defense of reality. Deadpool's quips barely masking the serious implications of their situation. Then, things got complicated. Another time door opened, and through it stepped another Tony Stark. This variant wore armor unlike anything the 2018 Tony had ever designed, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously.
Hello, myself. We need to talk about the mess your new friend has created.
He was from Earth 838, where he'd survived his endgame, but lost everything else. His presence revealed a horrible truth. The timeline Wade created hadn't just branched their reality, it had created a multiversal bridge connecting every Tony Stark who should have died. The Kang device's reality anchor was calling them like a beacon across dimensions. More time doors opened, more Tonys arrived, each with their own story of survival and subsequent catastrophe. The Tony who created an AI police state. The one who prevented the snap but triggered a superhuman war. The one who lived to 90, preserved by extremists while everyone he loved died naturally around him. Each testimony built the case that Tony Stark's death wasn't just a fixed point, it was a multiversal constant, written into the fundamental equation of reality. Wong studied the Kang device, now pulsing in rhythm with Deadpool's heartbeat, and proposed something unprecedented. Instead of trying to prune the branches, they could consolidate them. Merge all these possibilities into one moment of choice. It was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. The TVA's temporal courtroom had been redesigned for this specific purpose, existing outside of time in a pocket dimension where all possibilities could coexist without causing reality to have an aneurysm.
The rules are simple. Mr. Wilson and the primary Earth 616, Tony Stark, will settle this through combat. Winner determines the timeline's fate.
The arena itself was a marvel of temporal engineering, fragments of different timelines floating like islands in a sea of possibility. Pieces of the Battle of New York, sections of Titan, even a chunk of nowhere spinning lazily in the impossible space. Tony stood in his Mark 50 armor, but enhanced with multiversal upgrades gifted by his alternates, predictive algorithms from Earth 4521, phase shifters from Earth 199,999, and something ominously called the Anti-Deadpool Protocol.
You sure about this, Wade?
Sure as a fourth wall break in a Disney Plus series.
The fight began with Deadpool's signature unpredictability. His teleportation device activated before Judge Gamble finished speaking, materializing behind Tony with katanas already swinging. But Tony's enhanced armor responded before Wade's conscious mind had even completed the attack command. Nanobots forming defensive barriers with prescient precision. They danced across the temporal fragments, their battle taking them through a greatest hits compilation of MCU set pieces. Deadpool's healing factor combined with the Kang device's phase shifting, now fully integrated with his biology, made him nearly impossible to hit definitively. Tony's multiversal armor cycled through dimensional frequencies, existing in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The combat was less a fight and more a demonstration of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object that can exist in multiple realities at once. But as they fought, something unexpected happened. Between repulsor blasts and regenerating tissue, they began to truly communicate. Deadpool's usual quips gave way to genuine emotion as he explained his motivation, that Tony represented hope, proof that humanity didn't need to be perfect to be worthy, that regular humans with enough determination could stand alongside gods.
And if you die, that hope dies too.
The arena fell silent. The fight had reached not a conclusion, but an understanding. The stalemate was unprecedented in TVA history. Judge Gamble's temporal law books were literally rewriting themselves to account for the situation. Tony couldn't permanently harm Deadpool, and Deadpool couldn't overcome Tony's multiversal armor. But more importantly, they'd stopped trying.
There has to be another way. We're looking at this as a binary choice. I die, or the multiverse collapses. But when have I ever accepted binary choices?
Tony's genius mind was already working on alternatives. The Kang device, he realized, could be repurposed. Instead of branching the timeline, they could create a temporal loop, a pocket dimension where he could exist without affecting the main timeline. A workshop outside of time where he could develop solutions to multiversal threats without interfering with the sacred timeline.
It could work, but it would require a sacrifice, not from you, from him.
The Kang device, now inseparably bonded to Wade's unique physiology through their initial fusion, would need to power such a temporal loop indefinitely. Wade would have to remain connected to it forever.
So I'd be stuck babysitting Stark for eternity. Sold! The spin-off potential alone is worth it.
Wong warned they'd need to test it first, but the collective genius of the assembled Tonys had already worked out the calculations. The creation of what would be known as the Temporal Workshop required every Tony Stark present, complete TVA cooperation, Wong's mystical expertise, and somehow, crucially, Deadpool's running commentary. His presence as a narrative anomaly actually stabilized the quantum fluctuations, as if the universe itself recognized him as essential to the story. The workshop took shape, a space existing in all times and no time simultaneously. It looked like every Tony Stark workshop that had ever existed, all superimposed into one impossible space. Judge Gamble announced the rules with bureaucratic precision. Tony Stark would enter the workshop at his moment of death, transitioning instead of dying. The quantum imprint left by the Kang device would ensure he remembered to make the transition. He could observe, plan, and create, but couldn't directly interfere unless facing Omega-level threats. Wade Wilson would serve as the workshop's connection to the temporal streams, his meta-narrative nature allowing it to exist without creating paradoxes. Time resumed its normal flow. Tony Stark returned to 2018 with only vague memories, dreams of possibilities, and a stranger in red who spoke to cameras that weren't there. But deep in his subconscious, the quantum imprint waited like a loaded spring. He would go on to solve time travel, bring everyone back, and face Thanos with the Infinity Stones in his grasp. But when that crucial moment arrived, when he should have said, "I am Iron Man," and snapped his fingers to die, the quantum imprint activated. Something different happened. The stone's energy surged through him, but instead of burning him away, it pulled him sideways, through reality. To everyone watching, it appeared the same. Tony Stark fell. Pepper held him as the light faded from his arc reactor. They mourned him, buried him, and moved forward with their lives. But in the temporal workshop, Tony Stark opened his eyes to find Deadpool sitting in a chair, feet up on a workbench, reading a comic book about their own adventure.
Welcome to Forever, Roomie. Hope you like chimichangas, because I figured out how to make them exist outside of temporal continuity.
What now?
Now we watch, we wait, and when the multiverse needs saving by two idiots who refuse to play by the rules, we'll be ready.
Their existence outside of time had begun. They developed a routine, Tony monitoring timelines and developing contingency plans, Wade providing commentary that somehow made even multiversal mathematics entertaining. They couldn't be heroes in the traditional sense anymore, but they could be guardian angels. When threats emerged requiring their attention, they acted through proxies, through carefully placed information, and anonymous tips to the right heroes at the right time. They watched their main timeline continue. Morgan grew up to become a brilliant inventor. New heroes rose as old ones passed the torch. And in their workshop, they prepared for threats that might never come. Two immortals bound by circumstance and an odd friendship that transcended the normal rules of existence. Years passed in the outside world, while Tony and Wade existed in their temporal bubble. Then the first incursion happened, two Earths occupying the same space, ready to destroy each other and take their universes with them. The heroes of both worlds scrambled for solutions, but Tony and Wade knew the truth. This was just the beginning. The multiverse was contracting, reality eating itself in preparation for something worse.
It's starting. Secret Wars, the multiverse is collapsing.
Then I guess our vacation's over.
They made a choice. The workshop opened to others. Heroes from dying timelines, refugees from collapsed realities. Doctor Strange from Earth 838 arrived carrying books of spells from realities that no longer existed. A Thor who had become the All-Father. A Black Widow who had taken the super soldier serum. A Spider-Man who was actually 5 Spider-Men in a quantum-entangled state. The workshop became a bastion outside of existence, a rally point for the final battle. But Tony knew the truth. The workshop was a lifeboat, not a solution. The multiverse was still dying, and all they could do was delay the inevitable, unless they reversed the Kang device's function. Instead of creating a pocket outside of time, they could use it to restart time itself. A controlled Big Bang guided by the combined will of every hero who ever lived, focused through a single point. The arc reactor of the man who refused to die when the universe demanded it. The calculation was simple and terrible. It would require Tony's actual death. No workshop, no escape clause, no coming back. He'd gotten bonus years to prepare, to ensure that when this moment came, they'd be ready. Morgan was grown and safe. Pepper had moved on. The world had new hero. The bill had come due.
That would kill you, like actually kill you. No coming back.
I know, but I got bonus time, Wade. Years to prepare, to ensure we'd be ready. I did what I set out to do. I protected them all. Now it's time to pay the bill.
Deadpool stood beside Tony as reality collapsed around them, each hero channeling their energy through the man who had become a living conduit for multiversal rebirth. The Kang device, still bonded to Wade's cells, served as the catalyst, converting their combined will into pure, creative force. Tony could feel every timeline, every possibility, every story that had ever been or could ever be. And at the center of it all, he saw the truth. The multiverse wasn't dying, but being reborn. Every dead Tony Stark across every timeline had been a foundation stone for something bigger. All those possibilities now coming together to create something new.
Wade, tell them I figured it out. The equation. The reason I had to die in every timeline, it wasn't a sacrifice, it was a seed.
The light became blinding. Reality screamed, shattered, and reformed. And in that moment of infinite possibility, Deadpool did what he did best. He refused to let go. His immortal nature, his narrative importance, his sheer stubborn refusal to follow rules kept him tethered as everything else dissolved and reformed. The Kang device fused with his very being, anchored him to both the old reality and the new one being born. The multiverse resumed. Timelines flowed normally. Heroes lived and died according to their stories. But sometimes, in quiet moments, they'd receive mysterious assistance, a formula appearing in a scientist's dream, a warning arriving just in time to prevent disaster, a joke at exactly the right moment to break tension and save the day. The TVA recorded these anomalies but could never trace their source. Wong suspected but kept his silence. And Morgan Stark, now wearing her own armor, sometimes felt like her father was still watching, still protecting, still inventing impossible solutions to impossible problems. Because somewhere outside of time, in a workshop that shouldn't exist, two figures continued their eternal watch. One constantly tinkering, improving, preparing for threats that might never come. The other providing commentary to an audience that might not be listening.
So, same time next multiverse.
Wouldn't miss it for the world or all the worlds.
Their story continued not with an ending, but with an ellipsis, because some heroes are too stubborn to die, some stories too important to end, and some friendships too strange to ever make sense. The workshop hummed with potential energy. The multiverse spun on, and somewhere, somehow, Tony Stark and Wade Wilson were still saving the world, one inappropriate joke at a time. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite, wonderful, and marvelous possibilities.